Welcome, everybody. Welcome to WikiTree Day 2023. My name is Sandy, and I am thrilled to introduce to you live here in person the Germany project. You guys are going to be teaching us about categories, locations, and names. Why? So we can make a perfect German profile. So let me introduce you to the team. We've got Flo, Alexandra, and Swint. I am going to pass this right on over to Swint because this is a jam-packed hour. If you have any questions, let us know in the chat. And I will see all three of you on the back end of this because I've got a lot of learning to do myself. So welcome, everybody, and enjoy the Project Germany.
Thank you, Sandy. Welcome, everybody. I think we'll start with the simple things. German names. It's actually the easiest of the three sections of the presentation. So names, obviously, as you all know, play a big role in defining a person's identity, and in genealogy also, the name plays an important role in ensuring that you're attributing the sources to the correct person. So it is really important to get the names correct. And why should you care about German names? On the next slide, I have a bit of an example that shows you why you should care about German names. I'm assuming many of you are listening to this presentation because you might have German ancestors. And many of the people here on WikiTree are obviously US citizens or Canadian citizens or Australian or from all over the world. And there are some, of course, immigrants into those countries. But certainly most of the people, we have taken some examples from the US actually for this presentation. So did you know that about 17% of the United States population have self-reported as having German roots? So if you are in any of those light blue counties within the US, shaded in light blue, it is quite possible that you might have one or even multiple German ancestors. And in some regions of the United States, Germans continued to speak their native language. There were larger communities, German newspapers, church services in German language, and so on. However, during the First World War, many US citizens actually decided, if they had German roots, to Americanize their names. Therefore, actually understanding the evolution of your ancestors' names might equip you with quite some fascinating stories to spice up your WikiTree profiles. In fact, understanding the evolution of your ancestors' names might be key to finding more records or more cousins here in Germany. And here's a good example about what Steve Thomas and Chris Willoughby did. They have created a cousin bait page because they were looking for the ancestors of Fred Bormann. And if I read this as their German cousin potentially, I would immediately be inclined to actually message them and get in touch. However, unfortunately, I probably would have never found the page in the first place because I, as a German, would have searched for Friedrich Bormann instead of Fred Bormann. So, but since, luckily, Steve and Chris have also created a G2G post about Friedrich Rudolf Bormann, their German cousins are actually able to find these posts on Google. So to bait your German cousins, I think it is really important that you also use the native spelling on the profiles or on the cousin bait pages, the free space pages, or the other tools that you use to create your cousin bait. So this is really important. Do it in local language. But this is not always easy because the Germans, we have some funny characters. Letters, right? So we are not only like prosting each other with beers and so on day in, day out, but we also have funny spellings. For most of you know that we have the umlauts, the A with the two little dots above them, the O with the two dots above it, and the U with the two dots above it. And it is not always easy to create these characters when you type it into WikiTree. So what you need to do there really is you need to use Alt codes on your PC. So you need to hold the Alt key and then enter a 3 or 4 digit number, to actually produce an Ü, an Ö, or an Ä umlaut on your keyboard. And on a Mac, you need to press and hold the Option key and the U key, and then hit A twice, or U twice, or O twice to actually get the umlaut character. So I think these are some examples you've already probably heard about, but there are even worse ones. The further we go back in time, actually, the more funny the spellings get that our ancestors have used here in German church book records. There's many abbreviations, special characters, funny looking symbols, and all of that. Obviously, we cannot kind of, cover them all in this session. But here are at least 3 examples that are, I think, fairly common. Number one, you can maybe see that there is, in the middle of the screenshot, there is a Joe ES, Joe apostrophe ES, Italy with a Y at the end. So that is, the first name is an abbreviated form of Johannes or Johann. So this Joe apostrophe S is Johann or Johannes. And Italy, the Y, is in reality an abbreviation for the letters U and S. So it's actually a Johannes Italius, which is Latin for the German name Johann Eitel, quite a unique name actually. So I think it's important that you know these kind of little things when you actually look at these church book records and can make proper transcriptions. The second example, I think some of you might already have heard about as well, is when you have an Anna. Sometimes this is spelled with A-N-A, and the N has a little dash above it. This only happens on N's and M's, and when you have an N with a dash or an M with a dash above it, it is really a double N or a double M. So the scribe really meant A-N-N-A, but Germans are very efficient, so they like to abbreviate things and shorten things. And I think that is the second example. The third example is about the a swoop about the U, the U-Umlautbogen, which basically helps to differentiate the U character from other characters, similar characters like the N or the M, for example. So in this case, the U only means a regular U. You don't have to confuse it with the U umlaut, so it's not the Ü. This is just the plain U. So I think from that perspective, here are only 3 examples. There's much more to cover, but obviously we don't have much more time to go into all of those details. I think what's more interesting is actually how you then transfer back. If you have an American ancestor and you're looking for their German roots, how do you reverse engineer their name? Sometimes you don't have these baptism records because you don't know where in Germany were they born, where did they live. So that is actually quite difficult. The Germany project has some guidelines on that or some help on that in a free space page on WikiTree. And with the proper German last name, once you have identified that, there are actually some tools that can help you find the name distribution in 1890 Germany, for example. So with that proper German last name, you can actually narrow down the area where you might be able to look. So here on the slide, there is a few examples, both for the given names in red and for the last names in blue, but usually the given names are not the issue. I mean, getting from Mary Elizabeth to Maria Elisabeth is not really like very difficult. So the bigger problem is usually the last names. And there are certain transformations, usually around the pronunciation of a name, that your ancestors did to Americanize the name. Like in the first example, Kreutzmann, so the UE was in German a U-Umlaut, an Ü, and the man, obviously in Germany, means Mann. So the German equivalent to Kreutzmann is Kreutzmann. And similar maybe to Miller, that would be in German a Müller with an Ü-Umlaut. So there's certainly a few transformations that exist, a few others like silencing letters like in Nirim. In English, you would say it without the K, but in Germany, you would pronounce it Knirim. So there's some of those kind of examples. And the source that is mentioned on this slide actually has a few more of those. So if you want to research a name, think of all those possible variations and reverse engineer it. What is important, I think, when we collaborate on WikiTree across the countries is that we actually follow some rules as to what to put in what kind of field, because that helps us to work on common standards and actually so that it makes sense for both of us. For immigrants, often the last name at birth will be the German name. So what was on the right column on the previous slide, this is usually what you would put, the German name you would put into the last name at birth field. And the US Americanized version, the US English version would go into the current last name field. So when you add an immigrant from Germany to WikiTree, follow this principle with their last names. For the first names, also, you would prefer to put the German given names into the proper first name field. What is important to mention, really, really important to mention, is that the German culture does not know the concept of a middle name. Therefore, always leave the middle name field blank and add all the given names into the proper first name fields, and then add the Americanized names into the preferred first name fields. It is, also not uncommon that in Germany, the man took the last name of his wife. This was often required, particularly between the 17th to the 19th century, or even before actually, to ensure that the farm name was passed on to the children and that the children would always have the same name as the farm. So the father took the name of the wife in that case, and you would find other single words like sive or condictus in maybe some of the church book records. So I think that is definitely quite important. In the example that you see here, there's also, in this case, it's a woman with the last name, with the birth name Gößling, where in earlier iterations or in other sources we found to Suverin or Gosling. So when you have these kind of interesting changes in the last name, when farm names actually became something else and the last name transformed into something else, it's actually worth putting these kind of things into the WikiTree profile and putting some research notes below so that you can actually see, others can see how the last name evolved over time. I think what is also important, because we collaborate on these names, that when you add a German ancestor to WikiTree, that you first look for some alternate spellings and check for possible duplicates before you create a German profile. And please only create a German profile if you're really sure that the last name at birth is very well known and you have it well documented from an original source. So I think the next thing that I want to talk about briefly is around nobility. For the German nobility, there are only two major additional rules you need to remember. One is that the title of the nobleman, in this case, the German Emperor William II, you wouldn't put the title into the prefix field or into the name fields, but only into the other nicknames field. So I think this is important, rule number one. The second one, we don't use the von, so the von is the kind of sign that this was a noble. We don't put that into the last name at birth field. So just, you can use it in the current name field, but not in the last name at birth field. So this is the convention we have for all those profiles. And it helps us actually to collaborate internationally on the commentary here on WikiTree. To summarize, we will then get less, on the next slide, please. We will get less duplicates. We will get less mergers if we follow those guidelines altogether. And you can really create better cousin bait when using those native German spellings. And also how the names evolved over time actually provides really excellent material to improve the profiles on WikiTree. So with that, I'll end my presentation. If you think German names are difficult, stay put. Alexandra is now going to talk to us about German locations. Prost.
Hi, I will talk a bit about German locations. In strict sense, I speak about what to fill in two location fields for birth, marriage, and death, for those cases that the event happened in a German place. A place has a name, the location name. The name changes over time. To sum up the German location field guideline, the historical name, the name used at the event's time, is put into the location field of the event. And the current, today's name is covered by the location category. Florian will talk about categories later. Next, please. As an example, Langendernbach, today in Hessen, Bundesrepublik Deutschland. In 1842, it was Langendernbach in Nassau, in Deutscher Bund. That's the German Federation. A revolution and 2 wars later, in 1880, it is Langendernbach, Preußen, Deutsches Reich. That's the German Empire. In blue, you see options, which you could include to be more precise. So with municipality and district of Prussia, it would be Langendernbach, Oberlandkreis, Hessen-Nassau, Preußen, Deutsches Reich. Is this too long? Here are the 5 longest German location names per 2020 official German statistic. And the longest, not include spaces or dashes, would be Heiligenstedtener Kamp. Next, please. Getting back to the event at its time and its local language. This is not an easy task. This slide gives a rough view how long and with how many states the different Germanies existed. Continuous change haunted the German region. To make it not too complicated, the German project asked to minimum include the big 4 time spans. These big 4 are Heiliges Römisches Reich, Holy Roman Empire, Deutscher Bund, German Federation, Deutsches Reich, German Empire, and today, Deutschland, Germany. This is a recommendation for simplicity. It should not keep anyone from being more exact. Please recognize that the German states were again and again for small time sovereign states. And in the given big 4 time spans, also differentiation exists. For example, the simplified German Empire includes 3 different empires and 2 world wars. Next, please. If you want to get a feeling about the continuous change in the region, I recommend to take the time for this YouTube video, 1000 Years of European Border Changes. It really visualizes why the topic of location name is so difficult for Germany. Next, please. Getting back to an example. In the 1870 United States Federal Census, there's an Anton Brahm. He is 29 years old, a farmer. His origin is given as Nassau. The birth calculates to about 1841. Such a record, and those records are in America often like that, only includes a rough estimate for a birthplace. If you look into Wikipedia for Nassau, Nassau can be a place somewhere in the world. Bahamas, Canada, Cook Island. It's today a small village in the state of Rhineland-Palatinate in Germany. And in history, it was 2 sovereign states, Duchy of Nassau, County of Nassau, as well as a Prussian province. So if this is the solely information you have, you should really mark it as uncertain, since you will not be able to divide if this person came from the place, the little village Nassau, or if he came from that state or the province. The date 1841 gives you some indication that it's more likely the territory of the Duchy of Nassau to look at than the province of Nassau within Prussia. To find a person in German records, with this information, you will not be very successful. You will have to find more location information, or you have to have more precise information on dates, or on the family relationship, or maybe on the migration, and you need to be really lucky. Next slide, please. If you find in the records a real single place name and not a region's name, you still will run into the fact that many location names are not unique. The most used location name in Germany is Hausen, and Hausen literally means to dwell. So it's not even a very inventive name. Next, please. So where would I go looking for a location name? First, I actually look at Wikipedia. For the German Empire before the World War I, I tend to look at Meyer's Gazetteer. It's a very, very good resource for this time. And starting with the 1800s, there's also the GOV, which is a project in the German Society for Computer Genealogy about correct historic places. Then you can also research the place in WikiTree by just looking for the location category or checking into WikiTree Plus what other made with that name and what their conclusions were for the date you have in focus. Then you can actually also go and look at books. And today it's very nice that Google has so many digitalized. You can also go and look for local historical clubs and their sites on the internet. And then you can always go to G2G or to Discord and ask someone from the Germany project. Next, please. Sven talked about the funny characters we have in Germany. Being serious about that, you should always check your primary source for the correct spelling. Because you end up in a very different sounding cloud, so those two dots can be really the game changer. You end up in a different place if you don't ask for the right, if you don't write down the two dots. So it's always good to use wildcards when searching German location names, if possible. The next slide. I had the longest location name in the beginning. Maybe you remember them, but surprise, there are also 2-digit and 3-digit location names in Germany. While Elf is proud of having stolen city signs, there's also a Rom in Germany. Rome is also German spelling for Rome, Italy. So if someone finds in a German document an origin of Rome, it could be that this person did not come from Italy. With this, I hand over to Florian. We don't hear you, Florian.
Thank you. So let's talk categories. First up, why do we even need categories, or why using categories? Categories are used to group profiles with similar attributes. For example, to create an overview of all people that were living in one town, that were born in a town, that were on one ship, had one occupation or whatever. Plus, categories provide order and structure. Therefore, they are pretty German and we kind of had to use them. But what are the benefits of categories? One benefit would be the connection finder. If we take a look, we have a random category of Hinterzarten, Baden-Württemberg. And here we have an activity feed button and a My Connections button. And when we click the My Connections button, it will list all the people you're related to within this category, or the first, I don't know, 100,000 profiles in the category or something, but we don't have that many in Hinterzarten. So here you see all the people you're related to in the category. Your ancestors are marked. And a little lower, you also see the people you're connected to, meaning by marriage. And also, there is this activity feed button, which will show you the changes of the profiles within the categories, which might also be useful for many things. So let's see. What categories do we have in the Germany project? Our main interests, I would say, are location categories. Those are basically a must-have for German profiles. With location categories, we put people that were born in a place or got married at a place, died in a place, lived in a place, maybe had a profession in a place, stuff like that. What is important that our location categories do not contain historical names, but only present day. Therefore, profiles should not go in categories like Holy Roman Empire and so on, but only to present day categories. With present day, we mean the German states, the 16th of 1990. And what also is important, our location categories are in German. So it's not Munich, Bavaria, but München, Bayern. Berlin stays the same, obviously. And location categories can also be nested. So if a place used to be an independent town and then was later incorporated to a bigger one, we can still do a category for that town or even for a hamlet in that town, or even if there are enough people at farm level. So we're able to do a lot in that area. Question is, how does one create location categories? For that, we recommend using WikiTree B and Wikipedia. WikiTree B is a browser extension. If you don't know about it, I invite you to my session about it in less than 6 hours in the tech panel of WikiTree Day. So let's see what we're doing here. We have a random profile of Franziska Nie Huck, married Stuppi. And she was born in Waldrechtsweiler, Rastatt, Baden, Deutschland. Of course, as we learned from Alexandra now, this Deutschland should rather be German Confederation or Deutscher Bund, but that only as a side note. So we want to add a category of Waldrechtsweiler. So we scroll down to the category picker and we start typing Waldrechtsweiler and we see nothing. Great. So we need a location category. Therefore, we go to German Wikipedia. It's important that you use German Wikipedia because it only, for German categories, only works at German Wikipedia. So we go to the profile of Waldrechtsweiler and we see it's an Ortsteil, so it was incorporated to the town of Malch in Landkreis Karlsruhe in Baden-Württemberg. So then we highlight Malch because it belongs to the, it's not an independent town. If it would be an independent town, you would not need to highlight anything. And then we click here on the B icon. I hope you see it. No, you don't see it because the logo is in the way. So this here is the B icon. If you don't have it here, it's probably hidden under that puzzle piece. So now we have here our Albrechtsweier, and we have it in Mulch. And we click the B button, and it will automatically create the category syntax for the category. And it will also take the Wikidata ID, and it will take the coordinates, and it will insert the template, so you don't need to worry about a thing mainly. And you have a preview here. Unfortunately, there are 2 Mulch, so ours would be in Landkreis Karlsruhe, I think. Normally, this should not be a problem, but in this particular case, I apologize. It won't fill in the parent automatically because, like I said, there are 2 with this name, but usually it works quite well. So, and now we hit the preview, and we see the parent category is Mulch in Landkreis Karlsruhe, as explained here. And we hit the save button, which would be here. And now, if you have the WikiTree browser extension WBE installed, you will have here these nice green texts, and there is the use text, which says copy use when you hover about it. So you just hover about it. So you just click here, use, and then you can perfectly fine insert the category syntax, and you don't need to type a thing. And if we here select categorization and save the profile, then we will recognize that Franziska Huck-Stuppi does now have the category of Albrechtsweiler Baden-Württemberg assigned. So it's not that difficult to create a location category. What else do we have? We have migration categories. And to make it a little more challenging this time and more in line with the other countries, we use historical place names and we use English place names. And migration categories, you probably saw them, some of them already, are in various levels. There is a country or association level, and there is an administrative entity level or a state level below it. In practice, you would have country immigrants to other country, for example, United States. And at the 3rd level, you would have migrants from state in country A to state, province, whatever in the other country. And the same also exists for immigrants. So country immigrants from other country, and the migrants category is the same. For migration categories, like I said, we have historical categories. Therefore, there are many Germanys to which one could have migrated from or to. And over time, as you saw in Alexandra's presentation. And we have simplified those time ranges to keep our sanity, because as you can imagine, there are so many permutations of places to emigrate from and immigrate from. I mean, only if you take modern day Germany and you take the US, you have 50 categories migrants from Germany, or 50 states you have in the US, right? So you have 50 categories, migrants from Germany to Alabama, migrants from Germany to North Carolina, and so on. And then you have 16 states of present-day Germany, and you can see how that will grow. Therefore, we reduced it a bit to the following ones, and we are aware that those are not fully accurate, but this is necessary to keep our sanity. So there is Holy Roman Empire, which is basically everything until 1815. Yes, we might have a few profiles that actually take place before the Roman Empire and might even have enough sources to back that up. Those are isolated cases, have to be looked at separately. Then we have the German Confederation from 1850 to roughly 1870. The German Confederation was not really a country. It was more an association of independent states, but we still summarize it as German Confederation, also to have the word Germany still in the location field, in the category name. And then there's the German Empire from 1871 till the end of World War II, 1945. And present-day Germany from round about 1945, which is also not completely exact because it was only established in 49, and there were the occupied zones in Germany. But like I said, keeping the sanity. And while preparing this presentation, we also figured out that the German Democratic Republic, which existed from 49 till 1990, is not reflected in the migration categories at all. Therefore, we're working on a solution in that area. Okay, so how does one create migration categories? Because as you saw, those are many, and typing all that stuff and filling all those category info boxes can be pretty annoying. Therefore, let's see if we have some tool support. So there is Wilhelm Heinrich Schell, who emigrated from Bruchsal in Baden, Deutschland, again, German Empire, and he passed away in Georgia. Okay, so let's see if we can find him a migration category. So it would be, we do level 3, so from state to state. So we search for migrants from Grand Duchy of Baden to Georgia. Nothing. Okay, let's see. But we have the syntax right because there are many other states. Okay, then we take Kansas. We take migrants from Grand Duchy of Baden to Kansas, and we turn Kansas into Georgia. And we select categorization, and we save. Now, WikiTree complains that the category migrants from Grand Duchy of Baden to Georgia does not exist. Justified. But since we want to create it, we are bold and we say save anyway. So now we have a red category link to a non-existent category, migrants from Grand Duchy of Baden to Georgia, and we click on it. And the cool thing is, if you have the WikiTree browser extension installed, WBE, you automatically will have the feature migration category helper enabled. And this leads to this empty category being filled in automatically with the whole category source code. So as you saw, I didn't type a thing. I can do it again. We have this empty category now. We refresh one, and it will automatically populate with the category info box and the information of the country, if the browser extension supports the country. If not, please reach out to me. It's no effort to add additional countries. So we had Grand Duchy of Baden, and we said it was German Confederation, so we delete the German Empire, and we save, and we have our new migration category with Wilhelm Schell already in there. And we also have the parent categories. Those are already green. If they would have not been green, we can visit them, and WBE will also populate those. So now you can create migration categories. I'm sorry, the following categories you will have to create by hand. So there are ships and voyages categories. I'm sorry. So it's always good to have, if your ancestor or the person in your profile migrated, it's always good to have a ships category. So you check the category picker if there is a ship that fits the name that he is on the passenger manifest. Unfortunately, there are many ships that have the same names, and there are many ships missing. And my advice at this point would be create the category. If you don't find a category that fits, create a category. It's for the ship. It is better to create a category for a ship a redundant one or a wrong one with the wrong name or something than to lose this profile forever. Because if that person on the profile came with a ship called Washington or Detroit or Berlin, you have no chance of ever finding that person again once you create the ship category of that name, because there are so many Detroits in the profiles. People born in Detroit, lived in Detroit. How will you separate those that came with the ship of that name? So create a category, put the ancestor in there, and by all means, put that category in ships by name. You can also put other categories. The Australians have different ship categories than the Americans, but always use ships by name, because then they will all be in that category. You will see if there are duplicates. People experienced in ship categories can merge them and so on. But they have a chance because you created the category and you put that profile in. Also, if you want to, you can create an additional voyage category. There are some projects who do that, and it has the advantage to identify people that were really on the same trip of a ship, and to separate those also if the ship name is frequently used and stuff like that. Okay, what else do we have? We have occupations, which is fairly new. There is not that much. We're just getting them in place, but I wanted to talk about them anyway. So we created a category Berufe, which is an a different language version of the category occupations. And there you have categories for carpenters, for millers, whatever, but those are for all countries. So you tag those people as millers, and then you have the millers from Germany, America, Australia, and so on. Might be useful in some cases, might be unuseful in other cases. Therefore, we also started to create Deutschland Berufe categories, where we basically do German language versions of the categories already in Germany occupations. So there is a category Deutschland Förster, Beruf, so Germany Forester, occupation. We decided to put the occupation in parentheses after all those, because there is basically one person with basically every occupation, or a lot of occupations were used as surnames, and not to convince people, to confuse people, we decided to mark them explicitly as occupation categories. And with that, we can do German occupation categories, and we also can do occupation categories for very specific German terms that would be lost in translation else. So there are some 5 expressions for carpenters. There are people that inherited a whole farm, people that inherited half a farm or a quarter of a farm. And with German categories, we don't need to worry about translation, and we could still group those people in categories. And last but not least, we also started doing cemetery categories, but we're really just getting started there. At the cemetery categories, we use present-day locations. For the cemetery categories, we use present-day locations, so no historic location names in the cemeteries, because the cemeteries exist usually still. And we use English parent category names, those categories with comma cemeteries, like Germany cemeteries, Baden cemeteries, and so on. But we use German cemetery category names. So the cemetery itself is then called Friedhof München or something, because that's the official German name. It would not make sense to call it München Cemetery somehow. And like with Wikipedia for location categories, you can also use WikiTree B to create cemetery categories from Find a Grave. For some countries, it is not configured. Therefore, one might need to reach out to me or Ian to implement the specific country, but there are a lot of countries already supported by the cemetery categorization, like Germany, like the US. We're working on Canada at the moment, and some other countries I don't remember at the moment. Okay, so this would be categories. If you have any questions, I mean, we still have a few minutes, but if you have questions that exceed the time, first we have our project category guidelines, and we have the Germany project where all of the guidelines where the information of our presentation came from are linked. So go to the Germany project if you have questions. If the Germany project sites don't answer the questions, ask your question on G2G, make sure you tag Germany, or write in Discord, for example, in the general chat, and make sure you ping at Germany, because then you will receive an answer from us, because we get notified for sure. And for the Germans, CompGains Society of Computer Genealogy offers some forum mailing list site called Discourse. There we have a WikiTree area in German where you can ask your questions in German. And there is the Stammtisch, our weekly, our meeting twice a month where we talk in German about WikiTree. So this was our presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
We do have a couple of questions. I'm going to put it up on screen, and you can decide who answers. Is there a variation for the surnames of Albert or Laubender?
So Albert sounds like a German last name and first name as well. There are certain variations with an S at the end, so there might be some. And Laubender, there might also be different spellings, probably. Although I'm not an expert on either of the last names, actually.
And then how do I get someone to have a look at my German profiles in my tree to see then I get the place names are worded correctly?
I would say G2G or Discord. Ask us, tag Germany, and someone will have a look at it.
I do want to point out that this particular WikiTree mentioned that she did not see the Germany project Discord available to you, and WikiTree adds you onto Discord and adds the projects that you are existing members to. So if you're not a member of the Germany project, you will not see their Discord channel. Once you become a member, then WikiTree opens up that particular project that you become a member of. Let's see.
However, if you want to ask us something via Discord, you can do anyway, because you can ping us from anywhere with @Germany. Then the Germany project members will get a notification,
And
even if you're not a member.
We have a couple interesting comments and questions to share. So I have delayed my research on German ancestors because I can't find sources. I found registers when I had my heritage subscription, but now I don't have access.
That's unfortunately a lot of places in Germany. You still don't have online research sources, so even the Germans have that problem. It really depends where you are in Germany, whether or not there's a free online research source or not. It also depends on the religion. If you're Catholic, you're more likely to find a free resource or nothing. When you're Protestant, you have to go to Accordion, which is a paid resource. And then in the edit, it really depends where you are.
Now we had a couple of interesting comments that I think that you guys maybe helped with. This is great info. I'm in the process of creating profiles for my German ancestors right now, and I've got a little bit of cleanup to do. And then we have Amy that says, I'm glad to know these resources are available. I haven't researched my German ancestors much. And I will say that Germany will have a research party every once in a while. Look for that on G2G as well. And I have an ancestor with 3 names. Is that pretty common?
I have 5 names, so I'm not astonished.
3
We
given names. Yes, you can have multiple given names, and in Germany there was maybe one that was preferred, but they could switch between times, and certainly across different, transcribers or record keepers, they would also use different variations. Maybe they would use only 2 names. So it's actually worth tracking which given names were used in each occasion.
I also saw a Johanna baptized as Johanna and later only referred to as Mary. That really helped. Linda, use the category picker. If you want to find out if the category exists, use the category picker. That icon in the edit area with the category tree, click it and start typing the name. And if nothing comes up, the category was either created in the last hour or it doesn't exist.
And I'm going to need to watch this video again. Excellent information, a lot of information. This is excellent presentation. I'm really learning a lot. And as mentioned, Linda, I totally agree. It's a great presentation, but with a huge learning curve. Why do you guys think this has a large learning curve? Because of all your different locations, and like you mentioned, the names, so many different names. Sometimes they're used, sometimes they're not in Germany. And I have a surname that is supposed German. Any thoughts on name variations? I have had no luck finding this name in Germany.
Maybe Lenobert with a B instead of the V, I could imagine, or with a W instead of the V.
Lehn-Offer vielleicht.
Sorry?
Lehn-Offer.
With an F. With an F might also be an idea, and an H.
Lehn-Hofer or Lehn-Hoffer.
Could also have an H after the E. L-E-H-N potentially. Yeah.
Marty, do you have a general idea maybe where this surname ancestor might be from?
There is, Sandy, I put a link in the chat, in the private one. There is a name distribution map where you can add a surname and see if it creates any hits in 19th century Germany. Maybe you can share that. Because that helps sometimes. If you don't get any hits, you probably have the wrong spelling, and you can also play a bit with the location and see if anything pops up.
Let me try that one more time. This is a new feature in our streaming software, adds a little bit of junk at the end of a link. So let me try that one more time. There you go. There's the link. Now, I believe that surname map uses what data to bring up?
It either uses a phone book CD from the 1990s, and it uses World War I casualty lists, which also include the places that were no longer German after World War I or II. So that might be more helpful than the 1990s list of distribution.
And then David Randall said, excellent presentation. And Amy, I've learned a lot. Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. I think you guys also have somebody that you recognize in your chat as well that came up as well. So there you go. And this has been super useful. I've got some corrections to do and a lot of German language to learn. And I just want to point out that this is kind of the benefit of having the projects come on and do specific topics for WikiTree Day, because that only means that we get our profiles better. And before I let you guys go, I just want to point out, because I think it's super cool, Alexandra, who is the person on the photo of the wall that you're leaning on?
That's the father of my mother, my grandfather then, on the mother's side. And he lost everything in the war, so the house was completely bombed. So he worked a lot as a barman after the war.
I think it's super cool that you have them there. And I want to point out one other thing that Flo mentioned, that he's going to be doing a tour of WikiTree B with Greg Clark, and you saw Flo use WikiTree B to create categories. So if you do have questions about categories, that would be a good venue to come to watch. And that is going to be at 4 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. UTC. I'm going to put the link in the chat just as it is, so it doesn't have any extra characters added to it. And Marty said, not sure on location, just German and old census records and some old family stories, would be immigration before 1780s. Does that help with the name?
It's very early. Perhaps it would be best to ask a question on G2G and tag it with Germany, and then we can have a look together to see if we can help.
And look at his tree as well, and kind of try and see where everything is headed in the immigration as well. So that's a really good tip. So make sure to tag Germany as well. So thank you, guys. Thank you very much. It was a great job. I know I learned a lot, and it looks like a lot have learned a lot as well. I guess the only thing to do is say goodbye, but I think we need to say it in a particular language, don't you think?
Prost.
Thank you.
I was thinking
Thank
of
you.
Wiedersehen.
I should ask them.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, everybody,
Thank
for
you.
joining us.
Tschüss.